Let's talk about sentence structure. Sentences have two parts, a subject and a predicate. The subject tells us who or what the sentence is about. The predicate tells us something about the subject. Here's a sample sentence. Mrs. Dennis teaches English. The subject is Mrs. Dennis. The predicate is teaches English. Every word in our language can be categorized as at least one of the 8 parts of speech. Nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. Grammar is the study of how the 8 parts of speech should be placed in sentence structure. A clause is a group of words which contains a subject and a verb. There are 2 types of clauses. An independent clause, which can stand alone as a sentence. It forms a complete thought. Here's a sample sentence. The dogs barked loudly. In this sentence, we have a subject, the dogs. We have a verb, barked, and we have a complete thought. The dogs barked loudly. A dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence because it does not express a complete thought. And here's a sample. Because the dogs barked loudly. In this sentence, we still have the subject, the dogs, and we still have barked. But it's not a sentence, it's a dependent clause because it does not express a complete thought. Dependent clauses will begin with specific types of words, subordinating conjunctions or relative pronouns. Here are a few. Subordinating conjunction examples are the word after, since, because, if, until, unless, before, and although. Relative pronouns, who and whom, whoever and whomever, whose, that, which, what, when, and where. Simple sentences contain one independent clause. Here's a sample. I love Beatles music. Compound sentences include 2 or more independent clauses containing closely related ideas. These are often joined together with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Here's a sample sentence. I love Beatles music, so I routinely post YouTube videos of the group on my Facebook page. Notice we have 2 independent clauses. The first one is I love Beatles music. The second independent clause is I routinely post YouTube videos of the group on my Facebook page. Both independent clauses have subjects and they have verbs and they express complete thoughts. But they're closely related ideas, and so I choose to connect them with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions. You can call them the fanboys. It's an acronym that stands for the following: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And you can see the 7 beginning letters of each word. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. If you can memorize these 7 words, this will help you solve a multitude of grammatical problems. For example, punctuating a compound sentence. Think about it as a mathematical formula. First you have the independent clause, then the comma, then the coordinating conjunction, then the second independent clause. Add them all together, that is a compound sentence. Here's some examples. Grandma loves to bowl, comma, but her arthritis makes it hard to hold on to the ball. We have our first independent clause, Grandma loves to bowl. Then we have a comma. Then we have a coordinating conjunction, one of the 7 fanboys. And then we have our second independent clause. So we have a compound sentence that is punctuated correctly. Sally studies very hard, and her superior grades reflect her hard work. Again, independent clause, comma, conjunction, independent clause. I think a movie would be fun, or we could just go to dinner. Independent clause, comma, conjunction, independent clause. Notice something important. The coordinating conjunction gives the reader a tiny clue as to the relationship between the 2 independent clauses. In the first one, Grandma loves to bowl, but her arthritis makes it hard to hold on to the ball. There's an exception there because we choose but. In the second sentence, we use and, because we're saying that because she studies very hard, her grades reflect her hard work. These 2 ideas are joined together. And in the third example sentence, you have or, and or gives you an option, a movie or dinner. Sometimes you can skip the coordinating conjunction if it's not needed for the sentence to make sense. A semicolon is used in place of the comma and conjunction, like this. Sally studies very hard, semicolon. Her superior grades reflect her hard work. Notice the two independent clauses joined with just the semicolon. But be warned, you must not trade the comma-conjunction combination for a comma only, or you will have committed the dreaded comma splice. Sally studies very hard, comma, and her superior grades reflect her hard work. Good sentence. Sally studies very hard, semicolon. Her superior grades reflect her hard work. Good sentence. Sally studies very hard, comma. Her superior grades reflect her hard work. That is bad, bad, bad. Complex sentences contain a dependent clause, which must be attached to an independent clause in order for the sentence to make sense. Even though their last recording as a group took place in 1972, the Beatles continued to inspire new musical artists. Okay, notice that I've been talking about the Beatles. They are my favorite group. So you may hear a lot about the Beatles in the upcoming sessions. But complex sentence, notice the dependent clause. Even though their last recording as a group took place in 1972. Okay, we have a subject and we have a verb, but we do not have a complete thought. So there's our dependent clause. Then notice our independent clause. The Beatles continued to inspire new musical artists. We have a subject, we have a verb, and we have a complete thought. That dependent clause is dependent on the independent clause for the whole sentence to make sense. Complex sentences allow a writer so much freedom to present information in a more interesting sentence structure where the clauses are not treated equally. For example, here is a compound sentence. Now we go back to my favorite movie. Jack Sparrow and Elizabeth Swann are both named after birds. And this subtle trick directs the viewer toward the idea of freedom from constraint. Notice we have an independent clause, followed by a comma, followed by a conjunction, followed by another independent clause. That's our compound sentence formula. Then we come to the complex sentence. In order to further explore the theme of freedom in Pirates of the Caribbean, the lead characters, Jack Sparrow and Elizabeth Swann, are both named for birds. Okay, complex sentence, we have our dependent clause. In order to further explore the theme of freedom in Pirates of the Caribbean. That's dependent because it does not form a complete thought. Then we have our independent clause. The lead characters, Jack Sparrow and Elizabeth Swann, are both named for birds. You can see that both sentences present the same basic information. However, the complex sentence emphasizes the idea that the characters are named for birds.